Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have another Mattel Jurassic World Dino Trackers release, as we've got ourselves the final of the Wild Roar puzzle, the Kronosaurus. And this was one, honestly, that would probably be my most anticipated, potentially, I would say, from this wave of these figures, because it just looks so cool from the images that I had seen of it, and the majority of the, images I've seen since its release have all been this, basically, from up above. So I haven't really seen too much here from the side or anything of it quite yet. So I'm really excited to pop this one out, even more so than most Mattel figures, and take a look at it. But as far as the packaging, again, it's your standard. And then, of course, here on the back, we basically have a look at the Kronosaurus and its action features, as well as a listing over here for all of the other Wild Roar Dino Trackers figures, all of which are currently up here on the channel for reviews. So let's go ahead and pop this out of the box and check it out right now. One thing I did actually fail to point out, though, with this is in the background here, which I've already torn it open a bit, but rather than the traditional backdrop that we've seen for these Dino Trackers figures, we do have more of an aquatic setting for the Kronosaurus, which is a really nice touch. So here is our Kronosaurus, and man, is that thing awesome looking. Like, that is definitely one of the nicest marine reptiles Mattel has released yet. Almost kind of like a walking with dinosaurs type of a look for their Lioplorodon, but, rather than the Lioplorodon, we actually have it on a Kronosaurus this time around. But again, I really, really like the coloration of this one. It is as flashy, but yet as natural as it honestly can get. And the sculpt is super, super highly detailed, as always, when it comes to a Mattel figure. And maybe even more so than your standard marine reptile from Mattel, because this thing honestly looks phenomenal. I can go ahead and say right now that as far as Mattel's marine reptiles go, this is definitely my favorite that they have released so far, and I haven't even taken a closer look at it yet, but we're going to go ahead and do that right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Kronosaurus, you can straight away see that it is really, really nice looking as far as a detailing standpoint goes. The skin texture looks beautiful on this, and it is completely covered and overloaded with kind of like bumps and stuff all over the place. And the bumps are really interesting looking as far as the way that they've sculpted them out. They almost kind of resemble like just tons of barnacles all over the Kronosaurus. But you can also see that, again, we have a very dark tone of color for the majority of the body, but we have this beautiful blue right here in the eye socket area leading up toward the snout, and you can see it has almost like a metallic shine to it. So it definitely highlights that area of the face and definitely gives it a very, very flashy look. You can also see a yellow eye with a black pupil, which is perfectly placed as far as that paintwork goes. We do have a nice lighter tone here for the lower jaw, and although you can see more of those kind of bumps right there, you can also see some really nice looking scale detail leading throughout the course of the lower jaw. We've got some really nicely sculpted teeth here throughout. They have kind of like an interlocking look to them, as you can see right here. If we open the mouth, I hope the action feature doesn't go off, but you can see the inside of the mouth also has a very nice looking sculpt to it, as well as a really nice pinkish tone there for the inside of the mouth. Nicely textured tongue and everything on the inside here, and you can see all of the teeth look really nice as far as the painting. And as far as Mattel figures' teeth go, the teeth actually look nice as far as the sculpting goes as well, for the most part, I would say. Of course, you have that kind of, bulky look to the teeth, but I mean, it's a toy. You really can't get away from that. As you move back here into the neck region, you continue to see more phenomenal looking skin texture throughout. And as we lead down here to the underside, you start to see how the kind of lighter tone and the darker tone sort of like transition here, and they kind of stripe back and forth and design back and forth throughout that neck area, and that continues to be the same case throughout the majority of the figure. But one thing that I noticed immediately when I took it out of the packaging is that we actually have an injury right here, and I can see a few of them as you move through. You can see some right there, and that's definitely something that you would see, of course, on a Kronosaurus that's been alive for a little while. So I really do like that aspect to this model. Again, Mattel adding in some nice elements of realism with their Kronosaurus. You can see some nice kind of skin creases, skin wrinkles as you move down the course of the neck. Nice looking detailing here on the underside as well. There's definitely a speckling here in the light yellowish areas that you can see on the underside of the Kronosaurus. And you can see, just looking at it here, like the actual movement of the skin and everything and the structure of the body is really nicely shown throughout the sculpt. You've got some wrinkling and everything here as you lead down toward the flippers. Let's pull those out a little bit so we can get a better look at those. And you can see they look really, really nice. And again, I love the paintwork here as we lead out, how that black kind of stripes down. It's actually like, yeah, it definitely looks like a black or a really, really dark blue, but I love the way it kind of stripes down and then that kind of yellow stripes back. It just looks really neat, has a very cool design. Very flashy, but again, naturalistic design. And if we get nice and close, you can really see how nice that texturing looks as far as the detailing aspect to the figure. And then as you move back here into the stomach region, you again have more of those kind of like bumps all over the place. Again, I'm not entirely sure what they're meant to be, because if those are meant to be barnacles, like, there are a lot of them on this. If it's just the skin texture, again, it's a very unique and interesting take as far as the skin texture goes. And you can see if we move down here to the side, you've got a little bit of girth to the stomach, another injury right there. Again, whether it be a scar or a current injury, I'm not too sure. But as you move down here into the rear flipper, yet again, you have that really nice design as far as the coloration goes. And I like how they've allowed the kind of darker tones to kind of creep through a lot of the areas of the yellow. And that is something that we saw up here as well, which I think helps to add a little extra coloration to it, just kind of adding a little more realism, actually, I would say, probably. But as you move back here, again, a little bit further, you lead out into the tail of our Kronosaurus, and that as well looks really nice. And we even have some more injuries and stuff out here in the tail area, really, really slight injuries. And we can see that the coloration, the yellow here, cuts off right here, but it does not look bad by any means. This is definitely one of the nicest painted Mattel figures that I have ever seen. And you can see, of course, the opposing side looks pretty much the same. The paintwork of the eye is really nice and really consistent as far as the placement goes. Paintwork-wise, sculpt work-wise, everything looks gorgeous as you move through. Of course, being a marine reptile like this, outside of like injuries and stuff, I feel like you're not going to see too much difference over here. You can see another injury or a scar right there, another one right here, another one right there. So they are pretty frequent throughout the course of the body, which is definitely cool. But again, this thing is incredible looking when it comes to a Mattel marine reptile. Easily my new favorite right here. And before I forget, there is the fax app code if you would like to add this to your collection, because I did not show that off when we were taking a closer look at it. But as far as the articulation goes, you do again have the articulation of the jaw, and we have the upper and lower jaw together that kind of operate at the same time, which I'm going to go ahead and say is most likely part of the action feature. We also have articulation in the neck, also I'm certain is part of the action feature. And then we have the flippers, which you can see can kind of swivel, which is very jerky, and we can also move them up and also move them down. And that same thing can be said here for the rear flippers. And of course you can keep going all the way if you choose to, and then again move them out, back down. And yes, we have a swivel tail, but that is pretty much totally useless. But as far as the action feature goes, again, we have that same style of button that all the Wild Roars have had. So it's going to butcher the sounds if we try to do it quickly, but let's go ahead and check it out. That sounds more like some sort of like a herbivorous dinosaur, like a Triceratops or a Hadrosaur or something, more so than a Kronosaurus, but... And you can see basically what we get is a head tilt and the mouth opens, and then when we leave it go, the jaw snaps back shut. And then if you push the button the opposite way, again, that same thing's going to happen, but the opposite way now. So now if we try to have like some sort of a fast action attack, of course the noises are going to get jumbled. So that's probably the least enjoyable part of these figures, these, Wild Roars. We're going to go ahead and kind of prop it up there on the flippers to get a measurement for a length. You were looking at about 12 inches, almost on the dot, or around 30 centimeters, maybe 30 and a half. And then for a height, currently it's kind of propped up, so if we just go for the positioning that it's in to the tip of the snout, you are looking at about the 4¼ inch range, or just shy of 11 centimeters. Of course, that would be much, much lower if this were kind of flat on the ground. But for a size comparison, There is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovasaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our Mattel Kronosaurus here, the Dino Trackers Kronosaurus. And you can see that it's pretty much the exact size range that you would expect it to be. If you happen to have the previous Liaplorodon, it's again right there in the same size range as that. I really don't see much of a difference as far as the size goes between this or any other marine reptile that was released of this type. So you should already have an idea of the size, but if not, then maybe one of these figures here will help you out. So I tried to find my Liaplorodon to bring in for a size comparison, but I can't seem to figure out what I did with it. I have no idea where it went. It's got to be somewhere around here, but unfortunately, I can't find it currently, but again, trust me, it's right there in the same size range as the previously released Liaplorodon. But just in case you were curious, this is another Wild Roar figure, as we have the Eocarcharia, and you can definitely see again that they are a very similar size, right there in the same size range. So it is in the size ranges, you know, the Roarivores, the Roar Strikers, Roar Attacks, all that kind of stuff. And now again, the Wild Roars, it falls right there in that same size range as all of those figures that have come before it. So this brand new Mattel Jurassic World Dino Trackers Wild Roar Kronosaurus is gorgeous and is definitely my new favorite marine reptile overall from Mattel, until maybe when they release that Elasmosaurus, that might overtake my love for this Kronosaurus, but even that's going to be tough because this Kronosaurus is just awesome. Like, the sculpt is super nicely done, really highly detailed as a whole, maybe again, as I said earlier, more highly detailed than any marine reptile I can recall coming before it. I would actually like to see Mattel take another shot at the Mosasaurus from Jurassic World, just to see if they could do a better job now than they did when the original came out for Fallen Kingdom. I would actually like to see like a smaller version of it, something similar in size to this, or maybe a little bit longer, but not one that's just massive like the one that we have. Even though, of course, it is a massive creature in the films, the figure itself doesn't necessarily need to be massive, and I feel like the detail could look a lot nicer if they would give us a newer version of it. But again, this Kronosaurus is our focus currently, and sculpt-wise, it is absolutely beautiful, and paint-wise as well. I am a huge fan of the paint scheme that they've given it here. All of the coloration looks really nice and natural on the figure itself, and I actually really quite like that kind of metallic blue there in the face, which isn't something I always like, which is metallic tones on species like this, or dinosaurs, or any type of a prehistoric creature. But it actually looks really good here on this version. Really highlights the face in that specific area, and the design throughout the rest of the body, again, really reminds me of the Walking with Dinosaurs Liaplorodon, but also just generally looks awesome on this figure. And I love the tones of color. The way that the darker tones play off of the lighter tones is just really, really cool looking. So as a whole, again, the sculpt and paint is absolutely out of this world. As far as the action feature goes, it's nice and it works pretty good, but the sounds kind of being all jumbled when you do it is definitely a downside, and that's something that all of these Wild Roars have had going on, so maybe something Mattel could fix in the future, but again, it is a little bit of a downside as far as that goes. Outside of that, though, the action feature works pretty nicely. The sounds don't really sound much like a Kronosaurus to me, but they're kind of cool, I guess. The button on the top to activate the action feature is a little bit of an eyesore, but it doesn't look as terrible as some others have in the past. So as a whole, this figure's awesome. I really recommend grabbing it. So head to your local Target, because that's where I found mine. Or, of course, I will include a link in the description to Big Bad Toy Store, where you can pre-order the entire wave in one shot. Again, it kind of goes in and out of stock, so just keep checking back if it's out of stock when you go there, and it might be in stock the next time you check it, so who knows. Regardless, it's a very cool figure, definitely worth picking up, so make sure you do that, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.